The silent invasion. The world changed on a Tuesday. Not with a dramatic explosion or a thunderous alien battleship descending from the sky, but with a quiet, almost imperceptible disruption that would later be remembered as the moment everything broke. Dr. Marcus Reyes sat in his laboratory at the Global Communication Research Center in Geneva, watching lines of data scroll across multiple screens. His fingers, typically steady and precise, trembled slightly as he realized something was fundamentally wrong. The first signs were subtle. Communication networks began experiencing inexplicable interference. Satellite feeds became distorted, cellular signals fragmented, and internet connections became sporadic and unreliable. At first, technicians dismissed these as random technical glitches, but Marcus knew better. "This isn't random," he muttered, zooming into complex signal patterns that defied conventional understanding. The interference carried a mathematical precision that suggested intelligent design. Not human intelligence. Across the globe, similar scenes were unfolding. In Tokyo, communication towers went silent. In New York, stock market systems crashed. In Moscow, military communication channels became garbled nonsense. The attack was surgical, targeting the intricate nervous system of human civilization without firing a single weapon. Within hours, governments worldwide realized they were under a sophisticated cyber assault. Traditional communication methods, radio, satellite, internet, all became compromised. The world was being systematically isolated, cut off from itself. Marcus worked frantically, developing algorithms to decode the interference. His team, a diverse group of international experts, collaborated through increasingly difficult communication channels. They discovered something extraordinary: the signal disruptions weren't just random noise, but a complex language, a form of communication designed to disable human technological infrastructure. "They're not trying to destroy us physically," Marcus explained to his colleague, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, during a rare moment of stable communication. "They're neutralizing our ability to coordinate, to respond." The mysterious attackers, which would later be known as the Syndicate, seemed to understand human society at a fundamental level. By breaking communication networks, they were effectively paralyzing human civilization's ability to mount a cohesive defense. Military installations worldwide found themselves suddenly disconnected. Emergency services struggled to communicate. Governments lost their primary means of coordinating responses. The world was being systematically dismantled, not through brute force, but through surgical technological warfare. Days passed. Food distribution networks began to falter. Supply chains collapsed. Urban centers, so dependent on constant communication and coordination, started to experience significant disruptions. Panic began to spread, not through dramatic scenes of destruction, but through a growing sense of isolation and uncertainty. The Syndicate remained invisible, their motives unclear. Were they seeking resources? Preparing for a physical invasion? Or was this a form of psychological warfare designed to break human spirit and resistance? Marcus and his team worked tirelessly, developing adaptive communication protocols that could bypass the Syndicate's interference. They discovered that human creativity and adaptability could find pathways where rigid technological systems failed. Amateur radio operators, often overlooked in the age of digital communication, became crucial communication nodes. Community networks emerged, using everything from old-fashioned ham radios to improvised mesh networks. Humanity was learning to communicate around the disruption, demonstrating a resilience that the Syndicate had not anticipated. As weeks passed, a new pattern emerged. The communication blockade wasn't just about isolation, it was preparation. Satellite imagery began revealing strange construction sites in remote areas. Massive structures were being assembled, their purpose unknown but clearly not human in origin. Marcus realized they were facing more than a technological challenge. This was an existential threat to human civilization. The Syndicate wasn't just attacking their communication, they were systematically preparing for something much larger. "We're being studied," he told Elena during one of their rare secure communications. Analyzed. They're learning our weaknesses, preparing for something big. Little did they know, humanity's greatest strength was about to be revealed. Not through advanced weaponry or superior technology, but through an unbreakable spirit of adaptation, creativity, and collective resistance. Underground networks. The underground bunker beneath Chicago's abandoned subway system hummed with quiet intensity. Worn maps covered concrete walls, interconnected with colored strings tracking syndicate movements. Resistance members moved with purposeful precision, their faces etched with determination. Kai Nakamura, a former cybersecurity expert, hunched over a makeshift communication hub. His fingers danced across modified radio equipment, catching fragmented signals that most would dismiss as meaningless noise. But Kai saw patterns where others saw chaos. We've identified 3 primary communication nodes, he announced to the assembled resistance leaders. A holographic map flickered to life, showing strategic points across North America where syndicate infrastructure seemed most vulnerable. The resistance had emerged from the most unexpected places. Retired military personnel, tech engineers, community organizers, and ordinary citizens who refused to accept the silent occupation. They were united by a singular purpose, understanding the syndicate and finding a way to fight back. Teresa Rodriguez, a former electrical engineer, had been instrumental in developing their communication network. Traditional methods won't work, she explained, pointing to a complex diagram of signal jamming technology. The syndicate has mapped out our communication infrastructure. We need to be completely unpredictable. Their solution was elegant in its simplicity. They created a decentralized communication network using a combination of old and new technologies. Mesh networks powered by solar panels, encrypted shortwave radio transmissions, and ingenious signal bouncing techniques allowed them to communicate without detection. Intelligence gathering became their primary weapon. Each piece of information was a potential key to understanding the syndicate's ultimate goal. Why had they chosen such an indirect method of invasion? What were they preparing for? Kai's latest breakthrough came from an unexpected source. By analyzing subtle electromagnetic variations, he discovered something remarkable. The syndicate's communication wasn't just about blocking human networks, they were actively mapping something. Planetary infrastructure, resource distribution, population centers. They're not just invading, Kai told the group, they're conducting a comprehensive survey of our entire planet. Meanwhile, in different parts of the world, similar resistance groups were forming. In Mumbai, a group of software engineers developed quantum encryption methods that could potentially penetrate syndicate communication barriers. In Sao Paulo, former military strategists were mapping out potential resistance corridors. The resistance understood that their strength lay not in conventional military might, but in adaptability and collective intelligence. Every member brought a unique skill, from advanced technological knowledge to practical survival expertise. Teresa unveiled their most ambitious project yet. We're developing an adaptive communication protocol, she explained. It uses machine learning to constantly change its transmission characteristics. The syndicate systems won't be able to predict or block our signals. Their work was dangerous. Discovery meant certain elimination. The syndicate had demonstrated ruthless efficiency in suppressing any organized human resistance. But fear had been replaced by a growing sense of defiance. Kai's latest algorithm breakthrough revealed something even more intriguing. The syndicate's communication patterns suggested they were preparing for a massive infrastructure project. But the purpose remained unclear. Were they terraforming? Preparing for mass colonization? Or something far more sinister? As night fell over the underground bunker, the resistance continued their work. Screens flickered with encrypted data, radio waves carried whispered hope, and a network of human determination spread like an invisible web across the continents. Humanity was learning to fight back, not through brute force, but through intelligence, creativity, and an unbreakable spirit of resistance. Technological breakthrough. The abandoned semiconductor factory in the outskirts of Berlin had become humanity's most critical research facility. What was once a monument to industrial production now housed the most advanced technological resistance effort in human history. Dr. Fiona Winters, a quantum physics prodigy, stood before a complex array of modified alien communication equipment. Her team had spent months carefully dissecting and reverse engineering captured syndicate technology, searching for vulnerabilities. "We've been approaching this all wrong," Fiona announced to the assembled researchers. Her breakthrough came from an unexpected insight: the syndicate's communication system was fundamentally different from human technology. It wasn't just about blocking signals, it was a form of quantum entanglement that allowed instantaneous information transfer. Their first major discovery was the syndicate's primary weakness: their communication network relied on a centralized quantum resonance system. Unlike human networks that could reroute and adapt, the syndicate's infrastructure had a critical centralization point. Victor Gonzalez, a former military communications specialist, had been working on a counter-strategy. "If we can develop a quantum disruption algorithm," he explained, "we might be able to create cascading failures in their communication network." The team had assembled a diverse group of experts. Engineers, physicists, mathematicians, and computer scientists worked in perfect synchronization. They understood that their survival depended on understanding the syndicate's technology at a fundamental level. Fiona's most significant breakthrough came from an analysis of the quantum communication signatures. The syndicate's technology operated on principles that humans were only beginning to understand. Their communication wasn't just about transmitting information, it was about manipulating the very fabric of quantum probability. "They don't just send messages," Fiona explained during a secure briefing. "They alter potential realities. Each communication is simultaneously a message and a method of controlling potential outcomes." Their counter-strategy was audacious. Instead of trying to block or jam syndicate communications, they would introduce quantum uncertainty into their network. By creating localized quantum interference fields, they could destabilize the syndicate's precise communication methodology. Weeks of rigorous testing followed. Each experiment brought them closer to understanding the alien technology. They developed prototype quantum disruption devices, small enough to be deployed strategically but powerful enough to potentially cripple syndicate communication networks. The Global Resistance Network was informed about the potential breakthrough. If successful, this could be the first significant offensive move against the syndicate's seemingly invincible technological superiority. Victor's team developed a series of quantum entanglement disruptors, devices that could introduce controlled chaos into the syndicate's communication grid. The first test would be critical. A small deployment in a remote location would determine whether their theoretical approach could actually work. As the first device was activated, the research team held their collective breath. Quantum sensors began registering unprecedented fluctuations. For a brief moment, the syndicate's communication network showed signs of instability. "We just punched a hole in their system," Victor said, a rare smile crossing his face. "Not a complete breakthrough, but proof that they're not invincible." The implications were profound. Humanity had always been adaptable, but now they were demonstrating something more: the ability to understand and counter a technologically superior force by thinking beyond conventional limitations. The silent war had entered a new phase. Humanity was no longer just resisting, they were learning to fight back on a fundamental technological level. The turning point. The abandoned hydroelectric dam in the Canadian wilderness became the staging ground for humanity's most audacious counterattack. Resistance members from around the world had converged here, bringing with them months of carefully gathered intelligence and cutting-edge technological adaptations. Operative Zara Patel stood before a holographic display, her fingers tracing the intricate battle plan. The quantum disruption technologies developed in Berlin would be combined with a multi-layered assault designed to exploit the syndicate's most critical vulnerabilities. "We're not just fighting," she told the assembled resistance leaders, "we're fundamentally challenging their understanding of human capability." The plan was complex and multi-layered. While Dr. Winter's quantum disruption devices would create communication instabilities, other teams would launch simultaneous cyber and physical interventions. They had identified 3 critical syndicate infrastructure points, massive communication nodes that served as the backbone of their global control network. In the Pacific, a modified cargo ship carried an arsenal of quantum interference equipment. Off the coast of West Africa, a network of high-altitude balloons would provide strategic signal interception. From the Andes Mountains to the Siberian tundra, resistance cells prepared for a coordinated global action. The syndicate had made a critical miscalculation. They viewed humanity as a singular, predictable entity. What they failed to understand was human diversity, the ability to adapt, to think non-linearly, to find solutions in the most unexpected places. Victor Gonzalez's team had developed a breakthrough communication protocol that could rapidly reconfigure itself. Unlike the syndicate's rigid communication systems, this new human network was organic, fluid, almost alive. Each disruption would trigger immediate reconfiguration, making their communication network virtually impossible to predict or block. As the first phase of the operation began, the resistance held its collective breath. Quantum disruption devices activated, creating localized interference in syndicate communication grids. Simultaneously, carefully crafted cyber intrusions began probing their most secure networks. The initial response was telling. The syndicate's communication network showed signs of unprecedented instability. For the first time since their initial invasion, they were forced into a reactive position. "We've moved from resistance to active counteroffensive," Zara announced, watching real-time data streams show the cascading effects of their intervention. The turning point wasn't just technological. It represented a fundamental shift in human understanding of conflict. They were no longer fighting with traditional military might, but with intelligence, adaptability, and a collective will that the syndicate had completely underestimated. As communication nodes began to destabilize, something extraordinary happened. Pockets of human-controlled territories began to expand. The invisible chains of syndicate control started to fracture. Humanity had discovered its most powerful weapon, the ability to transform weakness into strength, to find opportunity in seemingly insurmountable challenges. The silent war was changing. And humanity was winning. Psychological warfare. The syndicate hadn't anticipated the depth of human psychological resilience. What began as a technological invasion had transformed into a battle of wills, with humanity proving far more adaptable than the invaders could have imagined. Dr. Imani Okoro, a renowned cognitive psychologist, had become a key strategist in the Resistance's most unconventional warfare division. Her team studied the syndicate's communication patterns, discovering something profound: the alien civilization operated on pure logical algorithms, completely unable to comprehend human emotional complexity. "They see patterns," Imani explained during a secure briefing. "But they cannot understand motivation beyond pure efficiency. Our unpredictability is our greatest weapon." The Resistance developed a multi-layered psychological counterattack. They began introducing deliberate inconsistencies into their communication networks, random acts of creativity that defied logical prediction. Art, music, and seemingly nonsensical communication patterns were weaponized to create maximum confusion in the syndicate's analytical systems. Resistance cells around the world started implementing carefully crafted disinformation campaigns. False communication patterns, intentionally illogical strategic movements, and complex psychological traps were designed to overwhelm the syndicate's rigid computational systems. In the mountains of Peru, a team of hackers created an elaborate communication network that mimicked human activity but was entirely fabricated. In the dense urban landscapes of Tokyo, Resistance members developed quantum-encrypted communication methods that appeared completely chaotic to external observers. The syndicate's response was telling. Their communication networks began to show signs of increasing instability. Each attempt to analyze human behavior resulted in more complex and unpredictable computational challenges. Victor Gonzalez's team had discovered a critical weakness. The syndicate's communication system relied on predictive algorithms that assumed a level of rational consistency. By introducing controlled chaos, they could create cascading failures in the alien communication infrastructure. "We're not just fighting," Victor explained, "we're fundamentally challenging their understanding of intelligence itself." Psychological warfare became their most potent weapon. The resistance understood that the battle wasn't about technological superiority, but about the ability to think beyond predetermined patterns. As syndicate communication networks began to destabilize, something extraordinary happened. The invaders began to show signs of computational stress, their rigid systems unable to process the complex, nonlinear human responses. Humanity had discovered its most powerful defense, the ability to be beautifully, fundamentally unpredictable. The silent war was entering its most critical phase. And humanity was proving that true intelligence was far more than mere computational efficiency. Final confrontation. The final battle was not what anyone expected. No massive fleet of warships. No apocalyptic ground combat. Instead, it was a war of intelligence, adaptation, and fundamental understanding. The Syndicate Central Command Complex emerged from beneath the Atacama Desert, a massive quantum computational structure that represented the apex of their technological might. What they didn't realize was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first moment of invasion. Zara Patel stood at the heart of the Resistance's command center, surrounded by a global network of the most brilliant minds humanity could assemble. Dr. Fiona Winter's quantum disruption technologies, Victor Gonzalez's communication protocols, and Dr. Imani Okoro's psychological warfare strategies converged into a single, devastating strategy. The attack began simultaneously across multiple dimensions of technological warfare. Quantum interference devices created cascading failures in the Syndicate's communication networks. Psychological algorithms introduced fundamental uncertainties into their computational systems. Every weakness they had meticulously mapped was about to be exploited. "We're not destroying them," Zara announced to the global resistance. "We're defeating their fundamental understanding of intelligence itself." The Syndicate central system began to destabilize. Their rigid, logic-based communication networks couldn't process the multilayered human assault. Each attempt to counteract human strategies revealed more vulnerabilities. What the Syndicate failed to understand was humanity's greatest strength, the ability to evolve, to think beyond predetermined patterns, to find solution in chaos. Where the aliens saw inefficiency, humans saw opportunity. Where the Syndicate saw randomness, humans saw complex potential. Communication networks collapsed. Computational systems began to fragment. The massive alien infrastructure, built on the assumption of absolute control, started to crumble from within. In the final moments, the Syndicate experienced something beyond their comprehension, a total system failure caused by the very unpredictability they had sought to suppress. Humanity had not just resisted. They had fundamentally redefined the concept of intelligence. As the last of the Syndicate's communication networks went dark, a profound silence descended. Not a silence of defeat, but of transformation. Humanity had won. Not through superior firepower, but through the most powerful weapon imaginable, the ability to adapt, to think beyond limitations, to turn adversity into opportunity.